If you're a busy mom like me, then you know that preparing for Shabbat can feel like running a marathon at times, but it's also one of my favorite parts of the week. It's that special time to pause, unplug, and bring a sense of calm and holiness into my home. Today, I will share with you how I prepare to host a Shabbaton in my house, all while juggling the beautiful chaos of a busy work week. Let's roll up our sleeves and let's get prepping. This week, I kicked off my Shabbat prep as early as Tuesday. By baking earlier on the week, it just gives me a sense of peace when I'm able to just concentrate on all of the main dishes later on in the week completely stress-free. The very first thing that I want to make for the Shabbat are some cookies. It's an amazing dough. It's the dough that basically comes together so quickly. There's no sugar inside of it. And you start off with 6 cups of all-purpose flour. To that then, we're adding in 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Then add in 1 1/4 cups of oil. I'm using avocado oil. You could use any neutral oil that you so choose. 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And lastly, 1 1/4 cup of boiling hot water. Mix it all until it's all incorporated. There's a huge variety of what you can make with this dough. I'm going to be making some Linzer cookies first.
Could I help? Oh, thanks for giving me all of it.
These are the Linzer cookies. They're about to go into the oven at 350 degrees. Up next, I'm going to be making some rolled cookies, and you could make them with lotus, with chocolate spread, with date spread, whatever you choose. I'm using this much dough. I'm going to roll it out and fill it up. Now I'm just gonna roll this up. This next roll is going to get some chocolate spread and chocolate chips. Out of all of the pastries today, I'm most excited to be making it with meringue. All I did is I took 1 egg yolk, mixed it with 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla pudding and 2 tablespoons of sugar. I whipped it up until it has this consistency, which is basically soft peaks. Smear that all over the dough. Now it's time to assemble all of the Linzer cookies. I use a mixture of raspberry filling and apricot as well, and just alternate between different shapes to make it more of a variety for our Shabbat table. I dust everything off with a nice amount of confectioner sugar just to elevate the look. These I score once more to make sure that they are nice and separated. Because I'm making all of these on Tuesday, I'm not gonna dust them now. I'm actually gonna freeze this entire batch, and on Thursday night I'm gonna remove them from the freezer, dust them, and put them into these little domes that I have so that they can be as fresh as possible. Wednesday is when I make my bread for Shabbat, and before I leave for work on Wednesday morning, I usually feed my starter so that I can work with it when I get home. When I get back from work, this is the beauty that I see. Look how fluffy and gorgeous it is. I then spend a little bit of time making the sourdough loaves, and I continue on with them on Friday when I get back from work when I bake them. To not overwhelm myself on Friday and make all of the meals, I separate everything and I do most of my prep on Thursday night after work. I like to start off by peeling a bunch of garlic for dips and salads, and with about a cup of the peeled garlic, I make a paste and use it in my salads and dip, which is very time-saving and convenient. This next recipe is a melt-in-your-mouth minute steak recipe, and it has become my go-to meat recipe to make when hosting. I start off by dicing one onion and add it to a large baking tray. Next, I add in one red pepper, one tomato, butternut squash, sweet potato, and baby potatoes go in as well, all into that baking tray. Don't skip any of these vegetables because they really do make this dish amazing. I prefer to cut the baby potatoes in half just to increase the surface area of where the potatoes will touch that delicious sauce that we're going to be making now. The sauce is really easy to make. I add in a quarter cup of avocado oil to a bowl, and then I add in a tablespoon of the garlic oil that I had made earlier. 1.5 cups of tomato sauce goes in next, and a quarter cup of teriyaki marinade. I then add in all of the seasonings to taste. I have here some salt, black pepper, cumin, coriander, and some steak seasoning, as well as paprika. So many of you have already made this recipe when I showed it first on Instagram and are loving it, which makes me so happy. Instagram is generally where I first show my recipes before I post them on YouTube. So if you're not following me there yet, what are you waiting for? I place half of the sauce that we just made on our vegetables and I mix it all thoroughly. I then dip each minute steak into the sauce, and I very quickly realized that this baking tray is much too small for what I need, so you'll see me switching everything out a little bit. I then add in about 1.5 cups of water to the bowl where we had the sauce just to clean everything out, and I added that to the pan as well, and it's just going to create a lot of moisture and softness to the meat. Before baking, I sprinkle on some dried parsley. It's completely optional, but I just feel like it elevates this dish a lot. I cover everything with a foil and place it into an oven preheated at 375 degrees for 3 hours. Now back to the garlic that I've peeled earlier. I'm going to be making a garlic confit, and I do have a separate video with all of our dips that we enjoy. It's very simple to make. I add in some oil, all of my seasonings, covered with foil, and bake it in the oven until they're nice and soft and amazingly delicious.
What do you like better, camp or school?
I love camp because it's fun.
I know, and you have homework.
Yeah. At around this time on Thursday, the juggle really starts. My kids are slowly trickling in from their schools. I'm finishing up making all of my meals that I could have squeezed in before they arrive, and then I switch on to mom mode until they go back to sleep and I continue cooking. This is my go-to very easy chicken thigh recipe. All I do is add in some salt, some garlic powder, some paprika, as well as the garlic paste and oil that I've made. I also add in some avocado oil over the top and just smother the entire chicken with all of those seasoning and spices, covered with foil, and place it into the oven where I have my meat, and that bakes covered for about an hour. Another must-have for me on Shabbat is this fire-roasted eggplant salad. Well, it's not a salad, it's a dip. I fire-roast it, and then I take out all of the flesh, put it into another bowl, and I'm going to add some garlic and salt to it. It's my all-time favorite dip, and I'm the only one that eats it in our family, unless I'm hosting. About an hour and a half after the meat's been in the oven, I take it out, uncover it, and I baste it with its juices. It already looks so good, but I'm gonna put it back into the oven for another hour and a half, and it's gonna become so soft, it's gonna melt in your mouth. The chicken thighs at this point have been in the oven for about an hour. I take it out, uncover it, baste it with its juices, and place it back into the oven for an additional 30 to 40 minutes so it can crispen up. My favorite way to serve these thighs is by placing them on a beautiful large plate and topping them with some dill and garlic. The mini steaks are also done and are so perfect. I never used to bake all of my proteins on Thursday nights. I used to always just prep everything and put it into the refrigerator and bake it when I got home, but it just caused a lot of stress and anxiety, so I find that doing it ahead of time really does help me. At this point, all of the kids are tucked away in bed, and I get started on continuing my food prep. I'm making some stuffed vegetables here. I'm using about 2 pounds of ground beef over here, but you could use lamb or turkey or a mixture of the two. I also wash about 3/4 cup of short grain rice that's raw until the water runs clear, and I add it to the bowl. You can use a variety of vegetables for your stuffed dish. I'm using some mini peppers, tomatoes, zucchinis, squashes, and the filling that I've actually carved out of them, I'm going to be reserving a few of them, about a cup or so of it, of tomatoes and zucchinis, and adding that into my filling with the meat, and the rice is just going to create a lot of softness and moisture into that. I also have some dill and some cilantro or parsley that I'm going to be adding to the filling, which is going to just make it so aromatic and delicious. I also like to add in about a cup of tomato sauce and season it with a little bit of cumin, coriander, salt, and black pepper. into a 5-quart pot where I'm going to be actually cooking this meal. I have the rest of the fillings of the zucchinis and I have the tomato filling over there. I'm going to be adding in about a cup of tomato sauce and a little drizzle of avocado oil to the bottom. I have my little station set up with all of the carved veggies, the filling, and the pot where I'm going to be placing everything inside once they're filled. I mix the filling thoroughly and start filling each and every single vegetable that I have carved out and placing them into the pot. With whatever meat that I have left over, I just form them into little meatballs and place them over the top also. To cook the stuffed vegetables, I place them on a medium-high flame and add in an additional cup of tomato sauce over the top and a little bit of water just when it's about to cover the vegetables. Not too much because all of these veggies are going to give off their own juices. Cover with the lid and allow it to cook for 2 to 3 hours. My favorite fish to make on Shabbat is definitely the Moroccan fish. It's just such a beautiful presentation with all of the colors. The green from the cilantro, the red from the sauce, and the paprika and turmeric. It's just gorgeous and it's so presentable. I do have a full video on my channel on all the sorts of different types of fish that we enjoy serving on Shabbat, so definitely check them out. I'll have it linked below. Into a large skillet, I add in a little bit of oil, jalapenos, sliced garlic, tomato paste, and separately I made an oil with paprika and turmeric that I allowed to steep a little bit like you would tea, and I'm going to place the entire thing onto the stovetop. I also have a whole can of garbanzo beans over here. I let that all simmer for a few minutes before adding in the fish. I slice up an entire lemon and squeeze it all throughout the fish and place those slices right over the top. Salmon teriyaki is definitely my kids' favorite. It's just sweet and beautiful. I bake it on Thursday night and I dress it all up Friday right before serving with the scallions and the lemons. I do have a reel out about it, or a short on YouTube, and you guys have made this and loved it and I'm so happy. As one of the appetizers, I wanted to make some Hasselback salami. It's not my personal favorite, but everyone seems to love it. Whenever we're hosting and I make it as an appetizer, everyone just cleans out the plate. So I guess it's delicious. All I do is slice up the salami 3/4 of the way down into thin circles, and then I add in my favorite barbecue sauce, Frank's Red Hot sauce, a little bit of honey, and some brown sugar. I don't know if you guys know this hack to getting your brown sugar to stay nice and moist. It's to add marshmallows. I definitely didn't do that here as I'm struggling to get it out. So I'm just adding in some marshmallows now so that the next time I need to use it, I'll be able to actually get to it. I baste the salami thoroughly all over and place it uncovered into a 400-degree oven for about 40 minutes, basting it halfway through. The Moroccan salmon gets finished off with some cilantro over the top and it's done. I've been loving making this pastrami cholent whenever I'm hosting a large crowd. All I do is take my crock pot, add in some oil, Slice up some garlic cloves, then chop up 1 onion thinly and cube up 1 potato, and I add all of that into the crock pot. I wash and drain 2 cans of red kidney beans. You can definitely use raw in this recipe, but I just needed to use these up. I then add in half a cup of barley that I've washed and drained inside of the crock pot as well. I then add in 1 cup of tomato sauce and all of the seasoning. I used some salt, paprika, garlic powder, a squirt of ketchup, and 6 cups of water. This is the nail pastrami that's fully cooked that I use. I find this in Bingo. I take it out of its vacuum sealed packaging and add it directly into the crock pot. I place the cholent into the refrigerator and cook it when I get home from work. Everything is all done now for me on my Thursday prep. I'm just going to be basting the Hasselback salami once more and put it in the oven for an additional 20 minutes. Everything else is cooked and I'm very happy with my progress. Before going on off to bed, I do defrost all of the cakes and pastries that I've made earlier, putting them into their beautiful domes, and now I don't have to worry about dessert for Shabbat. Friday after work is where I put all the finishing touches on everything. The first thing that I do when I come home is take out my sourdoughs from the refrigerator, put my Dutch ovens in the oven, and get that going. Like I said earlier in the video, this Shabbat we hosted a Shabbaton. Shabbaton is a gathering of a group of people where everybody comes together and celebrates Shabbat and elevates it. This week we hosted 8 additional adults, so it was my family and those 8 adults, so I did need to make quite a bit of food so that we would have enough for Friday night dinner, Saturday lunchtime, Saturday afternoon, like between dinner and lunch as well. Lots of snacks and lots of talking around the table and eating delicious food. In the background, the kids are getting showered, getting changed into their Shabbat clothing, setting up the Shabbat table, and arranging everything beautifully and nicely. All of our kids have set things that they do and accomplish before Shabbat. I had a whole video dedicated to that, and I'll link it down below for you if you're interested. I have received so many questions about challah and Shabbat. A lot of you are asking me that since I make sourdough bread each week, does that mean that it takes the place of challah? Do we have to have challah on Shabbat? So the answer is that a person can choose to have any kind of bread on Shabbat that is hamotzi, so any kind of bread, which is, it could be a bagel, it could be a roll, it could be a sourdough, it could be a challah. You can have all of it or some of it. We just choose to have our sourdough because we love it so much. I still do make challah. I make it once a month and I freeze the entire batch and take out about 1 to 2 loaves every single time we eat for Shabbat. We did have a couple that was gluten-free coming to us, so Shai baked up some gluten-free oatmeal bars, which were very delicious. I keep telling Shai that he has to make a reappearance here on the channel and cook something for us, so give him some encouragement in the comments down below. About an hour before Shabbat starts, I take out all of the meals that I've prepped on Thursday night to reheat them. These Pyrex dishes have a lid on them, which makes it so easy for me to store food from oven to table to back into the refrigerator. I just place some foil over the top of it first so that I could easily reheat my food, and the covers are just very convenient to stack things up in the refrigerator. The cholent goes into the crock pot. I set it on high at first to get it boiling and then turn it to low right before Shabbat starts. We also enjoy having eggs, sweet potatoes, and potatoes with our Shabbat lunch meal. So I place that over the top on some parchment paper so that they stay nice and clean. Boiled some rice just to have on hand in an emergency situation when I don't have enough fish for Shabbat day. So I would make some sushi salad. So that rice is just gonna go into the refrigerator, and if I need it, I'll make sushi salad the next day with it. I'm setting a timer now for when I need to take out my bread after I remove the covers. I don't know how people functioned before these timers. I know that my mom had never used the timer in the kitchen. She just, I guess by the smell of the food, knew when it was ready, or she was just very conscious of the time. I would burn everything if I would not have these timers. Do any of you set timers, or do you just wing it? Let me know down below. At this point, the hustle and bustle of Shabbat prep is slowly coming to a close. The breads are ready, the meals are done, the dips have been made, and I am just so excited to just relax and rejuvenate with my family and friends. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you did, it would mean so much to me if you would give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Happy prepping and Shabbat Shalom from my family to yours.